Hi, this is Bill Carmody with a tutorial on how to write a successful song. There are other ways to write songs, but this is a good one to start off with. So we start with page setup, and when you read this and do it, you'll have 16 measures ready to fill in. And we have some given notes and chords that will assure that we have a successful cadence at the end of each phrase, and the piece will sound finished when we get done. And so here's an example of what we have so far in the key of F, but it could be in any other key. And now we get to have some creative choices. Some of the chords are already written in the givens, and the measures that don't have a chord already assigned to them, this is what you're going to put in. So what you do is you start from the cadence, which has a given chord, and you work backwards. What chord do you want to lead to that chord, and then what chord do you want to lead to that chord, and so on. So we go from right to left in each phrase and fill in the chords. The 5-7 chord must be followed by a 1 chord. Not necessarily directly. The next chord could also be a 5-7, but when you finally change chords, the 5-7 sets up a 1 chord. So you have to go to a 1 chord after each 5-7, but that's the only restriction. A 4 chord can be preceded by a 1 chord, and a 1 chord can be preceded by a 4 or 5-7. But the 5-7 must be followed by a 1 chord. So start at the cadence and work back and assign a chord to each measure. And then we're going to pick the notes. So before you write the notes in the first measure, you got to figure out where you're going to go. So we pick the target note for the second measure. And it can be any note that's in that chord. So in this example, my second measure is an F chord, so I can have an F, an A, or a C on the first beat. And whatever note I choose to be my target note, then I go back and write the notes in the first measure and work my way towards that target note. And you do that before you start writing the notes. You know what note you're going to have for the first beat of the second measure. But before you write the rest of the notes in the second measure, you have to figure out what note you want to have for the first beat of the third measure. And so it goes, one measure after another. The cadence measures 4, 8, 12, and 16, should have longer notes on the first beat, because those are your cadences, and so those are rest spots. So a half note or a dotted half note, or even a whole note, but better a half note or a dotted half note, are good notes for beat 1 of the cadence measures. On beat 1 and beat 3 of every measure, these are the strong beats, the note in your melody needs to be one of the notes that's in the chord, and that way the melody and the harmony will work together. You won't have a melody that's playing notes from a different harmony. So the root third or fifth of the chord can be heard on beat 1 and on beat 3, the strong beat. The other beats 2 and 4, and in between the beats, can be non-harmonic tones. But on beat 1 and 3, use harmonic tones. Now you can also add an added 6 or 9th. So if I have a C chord, the added 6 is an A. It's the 6th note above the root of the chord. And the 9th is a D, an octave plus a step. So the A and the D can be on strong beats, on beats 1 and 3 of a measure that has a C chord in it. So the 6th and 9th can be used, but you need to know that you're doing it. So if you have a D in the melody on a strong beat and you have a C chord harmony, then you need to be able to say, well, that D is the 9th of the chord. You don't have to list it as a C9 chord, you just put it as a C chord, but you can have that extra added 6th or added 9th as long as you realize that's what you're doing. The rhythm is really important, and you want to have rhythmic variety, some rhythmic variety. You don't want every measure to be a different rhythm. You want some repetition. Think of songs that you like, any songs, and you will notice that sometimes the rhythm is repeated and sometimes it's changed. So you want to look for a balance between a different rhythm and the same rhythm. If you have all eighth notes, then it gets boring. If you have all quarter notes, it gets boring. So if you have all of anything, it gets boring. So you want to have a nice mix of it. The beginning of each phrase is important because it tells the audience whether that phrase is similar to something we've heard already before or whether this is new material. And so this form of A, first phrase is A, second phrase is A again, or just a similar version of A, starts out the same. The third phrase is going to be some new material, like the bridge, and the fourth phrase is going to go back to the original material. So that's what we're trying to do. Develop your motif. Look at Music Solutions, page 50, for ways to develop a motif by sequencing or inversion. You can look all those techniques up, and once you have whatever you have in the first measure, make that the seed of the rest of your measures in your song, so that the other measures should relate in some way to that first measure, and that'll give your song unity and coherence, cohesiveness. And finally, when you think you have your song done, you want to include things that all good music has. You need a title, and make the title tell me what kind of mood the song is going to be in. So when somebody looks at your piece of music and they look at the title, they can have an idea of how it's going to be performed. Is this a little kid getting a balloon at the fair, or is this heartbreak, or whatever? So give it a title that's meaningful. Don't go for laughs like 3 o'clock in the morning song. Tempo tells how fast it should be. The dynamics, you should have some loud and soft. Don't have everything be the same. Look on page 26 in Music Solutions and give you a bunch of musical terms to help the performer know how to perform, how you want the piece to be done. Don't forget things like slurs and staccato marks and tenuto marks and so on. And once you get it all done, then recopy it. Don't turn in your working copy, but copy it out so that it looks really nice and you can frame it and put it up on the wall, because it's your first great composition, your masterpiece. And if you follow these rules, your song will work out. These rules guarantee success. So start writing and keep writing. Once you have now become a composer, you should always have a work in progress. Always keep working on a new song. Don't wait for an assignment. Start to build your library of original compositions. All right, that's it. Bye-bye.